Hey, welcome back to How to Barbecue Right. I'm Malcom. Today I'm going to show you how I do a barbecue chuck roast. Now I picked up this big chuck roast at my local grocery store. It's nothing fancy. I'm going to get it seasoned up and then some hickory smoke on my stick burner pit. When it gets some color on it, we're going to wrap it up with some beef au jus, get it fall apart tender. Y'all know I'm going to have to make me a big old barbecue chuck roast sandwich. Let's get to cooking. So this chuck roast I'm starting with today weighs about 3.5 pounds. It's got some good marbling in it, but what I really like about chuck roast is it's got a lot of fat. That fat's gonna render down. It's gonna make this meat juicy. It's gonna give it a ton of beef flavor. Now we need some seasonings on the outside. So I'm starting with my buddies from Swine new prime beef rub. You could use whatever you like. If you got a nice little seasoning you wanna go with, hey, go to it on chuck roast. You can't go wrong. But I'm gonna go pretty heavy with this prime beef. I want it to have that bold, beefy flavor. Let's hit this other side up. You know I ain't gonna forget the edges. I'm gonna come back and season them too. Just kind of lift it up and use your hand as a guide. Go all the way around. I'm gonna get that prime beef patted in just a little bit. Shake off the excess on that side. It's looking, smelling good already, but we need some barbecue flavor on it. So I'm gonna go with my hot barbecue rub. Give it a nice peppery kick. Give us that pretty red mahogany color. And we're going right on top of that prime beef, getting the edges and everything. Already you can see that color's popping out. That's why I like to layer on these rubs. That prime beef's a good savory first note, but I want those barbecue flavors on top. It's gonna give us the color. It's also gonna give us that essence of great barbecue right on the meat. And once we get it coated good, it's patted down, the rub's working on it, pulling out some moisture, I'm gonna fire this stick burner pit up. To smoke this chuck roast, I'm firing up my Outlaw stick burner pit today. I'm gonna start out with a base of Royal Oak briquettes to get us some good hot coals. Got a couple tumbleweeds going underneath them. After about 15-20 minutes, those coals are ready. It's time to start adding some wood to it. I've got splits of seasoned hickory wood. We'll put those right on top, and they'll start catching on pretty immediately. That's gonna give us some good BTUs, get that pit temperature up. I'm shooting for about 300 degrees cooking temp today for this chuck roast. All right, we've got this Outlaw pit running right up at 300 degrees. Now we're gonna stick this chuck roast right on the grate. We're gonna get the lid shut on it and let this Outlaw do its thing. So we've been rolling about 2.5 hours. I've been putting the log on the fire about every 45 minutes just to maintain it at 300 degrees. Now, I've got the outside of this chuck roast where I want it. You can see we got a beautiful bark going. We know it's gonna have some smoke flavor from that hickory wood. Color looks good. It's time to get this chuck roast tender. So what I'm gonna do is pour in some beef broth, and I took some beef concentrate, better than bouillon beef, mixed it with 16 ounces of water. And I'm not gonna put all of it. I just wanna get some liquid in the bottom of the pan coming up on the roast a little bit. I think that's gonna do it right there. I don't wanna cover the top. I just want liquid to come up about halfway. Now I'm gonna put a little bit of butter in here. I'm just gonna cut it into some pats. We're gonna put that right on top of our roast. You know, about half a stick, something like that. This is gonna give it some extra rich flavor. It's gonna make that broth taste good. And I just like cooking with butter. Then all we need is a probe. I'm gonna stick my dot alarm right center. You don't wanna go all the way down to the bottom, about midways. And we're gonna cover it up with full. Make sure the probe's not poking through. Set it right back on the pit. We're about 175 internal right now. I've got it set on 210. I'm gonna come back and check on it when it gets to about 200 degrees. Start feeling for tenderness. So after about an hour and a half, we started creeping up temperatures over 200. And I just let it stabilize out. And I'm using temp more as a guide, but what I really want is softness. So check it out. I should be able to take this probe and just have zero resistance. You can see how soft it's sliding in that meat just like it's melted butter. That's how I know it's gonna pull right apart. Now I'm just gonna cover it back up. We're gonna take it over to the cutting board and let it hang out for about 30 minutes before I take it out and pull it apart. Now I've let this chuck roast sit here and rest about as long as I can take today. It's been smelling so good out here. It's time to go to work. So I'm gonna take it out. I got me some gloves on to keep my hands nice and protected. Let it drip a little bit. We're coming right on the board. I wanted to cook this thing that was so tender it's basically gonna fall apart. But you can tell, I mean, I can just grab it with my hands and make some pulled beef with it. Just go to pull it in strands, bite-sized pieces. Just like you was pulling pork butt, we're shredding this chuck roast by hand, making some pulled beef. When you cook it long enough, all that fat renders. It's just barely hanging on anyway. If you do see anything that didn't render out, you can kick that out. That's why I like going through it with gloves and on my hands, I can kind of feel if there's a little bit of connective tissue or something that didn't render. I gotta try a bite of this bark. Where my beef lovers at? That's what I'm talking about right here. Smoked beef at its finest. Now that is a pile of pulled beef I can get down on. Y'all didn't think I forgot about this pan. Goodness, right here, we rendered out with that beef juice in it. I'm gonna drizzle just a little bit back over the top, keep that flavor going. Gotta have some board sauce. Let's give it a little toss, moisten it back up just a little bit. Mix those flavors. That's gonna get the inside season right there. But check that out. Now it's time to make that barbecue chuck roast sandwich that I've been waiting on all day. I toasted up some of these onion buns with little poppy seeds on them in the oven. Got them nice and brown. I'm gonna take a little bit, or a lot of bit, as I like to do it, of that pulled chuck roast. Get it right on top. Then I took some of my Killer Hogs barbecue sauce. You could use your regular barbecue sauce that you like, mixed it with that leftover beef juice that I had when we wrapped. It was about a 1/4 cup, and I mixed it with a 1/4 cup of barbecue sauce. We're gonna drizzle that all over the top, and it kind of makes a beefy barbecue flavor to it. So it's not just straight sweet barbecue sauce. You don't have to use any sauce if you don't want to. I've got a jalapeno creamy coleslaw that I made. I'm just gonna pop that recipe up. Y'all gotta try that coleslaw. We're going right on top of this beef with a little slaw, but that's all it takes. Barbecue chuck roast, onion bun, jalapeno slaw, trying to come off. Before I lose any of it, I gotta go in. That's dynamite. Smoky, beefy, got the heat from the slaw. You don't get no better than that right there. Do a little housekeeping before we wrap it up. You gotta stay fresh. And this is one recipe you can do on any pit. Just keep those temperatures the same at 300. Go get a chuck roast from the grocery store and get some seasonings on it. Get it in some hickory smoke. Get some bark on the outside. Put the juice in the pan with it, a little butter, and cook it till it's fall apart tender. You'll never break that crock pot out again for chuck roast, I promise. Hey, thanks for hanging out with us today here at HowToBBQRight. If you like what we're doing, subscribe to the channel. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I'm even doing TikTok videos. And Shell and I are gonna talk about this barbecue chuck roast recipe on our weekly podcast. Y'all give that a listen too. We'll see y'all next time. I gotta finish this sandwich. It's too good. That's what I'm talking about. That slaw brings some heat to the party. Sauce just blends it in. It's another winner, Shell.